Hey, Crosspointe family. This is Jonathan. Hey, I want to take a moment and I wanted to give you an update on Crosspointe based on the latest announcement from our governor here in North Carolina this past week about what a reopening plan looks like and what a phasing in plan looks like for our state. And before we get into that, I want to acknowledge that I completely recognize that there's just a lot of different feelings and emotions that are swirling around about that, and that everyone hears the particular announcement this past week through different lenses. And that right now there's a lot of people who are scared, people that are uncertain, there's people who are angry, there's people who are confused, they're still walking through a lot of grief. And I just want to acknowledge that all those feelings and all those emotions are valid, that all those different perspectives are valid. As someone who's entrusted with leading an organization, I have a lot of empathy right now for a lot of leaders, whether those are leaders at our local and city and county level, whether that's our leaders at the state level or the national level. I have a lot of empathy for leaders of nonprofits and for-profit businesses, a lot of empathy for leaders of all different types of organizations and companies, because there's just a lot of different perspectives that everyone has to try to manage, and a lot of different feelings and emotions that factor in to the mix when you're making decisions. Some of you have probably seen these types of surveys that are out there, but right now it looks like that in America, you've got about a third of the people who feel like that we've overreacted when it comes to the coronavirus and our response and the steps and the measures that we've taken. You got another third of the people that feel like that we've landed right about where we should be and that we've handled it and the restrictions kind of right where we should. And then you've got another third who feel like we've way underreacted to the coronavirus and the pandemic as it stands. So what that means is for any leader, any team of leaders, any organization, no matter what decision they make, they're going to frustrate and tick off about 2/3 of the people automatically. Doesn't matter what you do, doesn't matter what decision you make, you're going to frustrate and you're going to anger and confuse at least 2/3 of the people and probably get second guessed by everybody. And that's just the way things are. But when we look at the specific announcement that was given here in North Carolina this past week, the governor announced that based on the science, based on the data, based on our trends, that it's not safe to gather indoors with gatherings of more than 10 people right now. That's kind of where we're at in the phasing in plan. But that churches and religious organizations were given an exemption from those restrictions. And so there are no restrictions on churches and religious organizations. So, understandably, that leaves churches and church leaders with a lot of questions to have to wrestle through. And I think every church is going to have to wrestle through that. And there's going to be all sorts of different strategies that get implemented and all sorts of different decisions that get made based on everyone's unique situation and context. And I'm not here to judge anybody's decision and what they feel like is best for their particular situation and their particular context. But what I do want to share with you is where we feel like things stand for Crosspointe, our particular church community. And just because we as a church have been given the ability to regather starting this weekend, I want to share with you that doesn't mean that we will be. In fact, we won't be. We won't be gathering together probably on Sunday morning for a while. I don't know how long that while is, but it's going to be a while before we gather together in one large group on Sunday mornings again. And there's just a lot of factors to consider with that, from the size of our church and the size of our gatherings. We have to factor in how we do children's ministry. We have to factor in the environments we're trying to create for both kids and adults and volunteers that are safe and great all at the same time. And we also have to factor in our partner with the Northwest Cary YMCA and the facility that we share together and how they're trying to do life and how we continue to link arms with them. Now, if you remember when we made the decision probably almost 70 days ago, when we made the decision to stop gathering on Sunday mornings, we made that decision as a church and as a leadership before there were any restrictions placed on us by the government, before there were any stay-at-home orders, before there was any quarantine. I think we're one of the first, if not the first church locally here in our area to make that public, that we weren't going to be gathering on Sundays in light of the information that we were aware of. And I don't say that to say anything about Crosspointe, um, but I say that because I want you to know that it makes sense that we're not going to make our decision based solely on restrictions that are or are not placed on us by the government, by exemptions we're given or not given. That's not the only factor that goes into our decision-making process. And so what I wanted to do is I want to take a moment and I just want to share with you the factors that are weighing in and will continue to weigh in our decision-making process as leaders here at Crosspointe. So number one, we are going to filter our decision-making process through the lens of seeking wisdom and advice from medical experts and from science and from data, especially those here in our local area. We are so fortunate when we live here in the Research Triangle that this is home to some of the most brilliant medical minds on the planet, that people from all over the world come here for the medical wisdom and expertise of people right here in our backyard. And so we don't have to rely on what someone else is saying about another town or another city. We have experts right here that can help us speak to and navigate our specific situation here in North Carolina. And so we have sought their wisdom and will continue to do that moving forward. That's going to be one of the filters we use in a decision-making process. A second filter we're going to use is we're going to keep asking the question, what do we feel like is in the best interest of everyone who calls Crosspointe home, of everyone who calls Crosspointe family? So that includes the vulnerable. It includes adults of all ages. It includes kids. It includes students. That we have to ask the question, what's in the best interest of our family, of our Crosspointe family? What's in the best interest of everyone? Third factor we're going to continue to consider is what's in the best interest of our city and our surrounding neighbors. Those of you who have been around Crosspointe for a while, you know our heart has always been, how do we put the love of Christ and the wisdom of Christ on display for our community? And so, of course, we're going to ask, what's in the best interest of our surrounding neighbors and our community? How do we do that best? And then fourthly, we're going to keep asking the question, what do we feel like the Spirit of Christ is leading our specific church community here at Crosspointe to do? We as leaders are going to continue to wrestle through that. And all of us as a church community and getting input from all of us to figure out what is the Spirit of Christ up to and what is the Spirit of Christ leading our specific church community to do, because this has always been Crosspointe's story. It's been Crosspointe's story from the time when 3 families moved from the Midwest without knowing anyone and moved to this area to start this community. It's the same spirit that led us to do this crazy thing like build a YMCA, and the same crazy promptings and leadings that led us to sell it and sell the building this past year. And oh my goodness, when there was so much uncertainty, I mean, how glad are we now that we as a church don't have this huge mortgage payment that's hanging over our heads right now that enables us to continue to find all sorts of ways to love and care for people in these really uncertain times. And that's the same Spirit of Christ that we're going to try to follow and that we're going to try to listen to in terms of when it looks like we should regather together on Sunday mornings in the building. But again, that's going to be a while. And I'm not saying that I think that's what everyone should be doing. I'm just saying that's what we think Crosspointe should be doing right now. I'm super grateful that schools are trying to figure out how to regather together. I'm really grateful that businesses and all sorts of companies and sports are trying to figure out how to regather and how to reopen. I think those are really important things that we have to do and we have to try to figure out. However, Crosspointe, we have shown and will continue to show that we can be really effective in our mission by doing things differently. And we just feel like that collectively, we don't need to add any further risk to the equation right now. That we don't need to be a part of adding more and more risk. That it's not critical that we do so by gathering in a building. But in the meantime, what I want to remind all of us who are a part of Crosspointe is we're not shut down in any way. Right? I always chuckle a little bit when people ask me, like, so when do you think Crosspointe's going to reopen again? And I'm like, reopen? Like, we've been open the whole time. Like, we never closed. We've been open, and I hope you recognize that. I hope you see the evidence of that, that we've been able to put out content all through the week and on the weekends that thousands of people are engaging with. That we as a community are intentionally finding ways to love on the vulnerable and the grieving and the exhausted in our community. That we're doing counseling, we're doing mentoring, we're hearing from people literally all across the world who are finding our community because people from Crosspointe have invited them in, where they haven't been able to connect with any sort of church for whatever reason, but they're connecting with ours now in a way they've never been able to before, and find themselves connected to a church community and finding it as a place that they can be a part of and grow and thrive and be proud to call family. And so, friends, again, we're just very much open. Our mission hasn't changed in who we are and the vision of who we are and what we're trying to do. The strategy has shifted a little bit in terms of our gatherings. That's what happened. And we're going to keep getting creative. We've had to shift strategies on that a lot. Through the construction years, through all sorts of things, we've shifted strategies on that a lot. But I want to encourage you to keep doing a couple things in the meantime. While this strategy has changed, I want to encourage you to keep staying connected. Please stay connected with people. We are not socially distancing, we are physically distancing. And we've got to find ways to stay connected to each other. And that takes discipline and that takes intentionality. Many of you have wanted to get connected in a group, whether that's a men's group or a women's group or an everybody group or a small group, a book study, all sorts of different things. You've wanted to do that, but there's always been obstacles in the way. And maybe those obstacles are removed right now. And it might be easier than ever for you to get connected. We've got summer groups that are coming up, lots of different ways that you can get connected and involved. If you don't find those easily on our website or in other ways, just email community@crosspointe.org and someone will help you get connected to a group of people. But yeah, this is important that we're with people and that we're doing life with people and we're finding ways to engage. And so I hope that you stay connected with one another. And then secondly, I hope that you just keep serving people. Keep finding ways to love and to serve. We're going to try to keep equipping all of us as a church to do that in very intentional ways, but not only what we do collectively all together, but just with your neighbors or your friends and people surrounding you in workplaces and work environments and strangers and people that you don't know. Let's figure out ways together to love and to serve and to be really intentional about that. And I hope that you'll lean in and keep figuring out ways to do that. And then also, I'd be remiss if I just didn't say thank you for all of you who continue to contribute financially. That's fueling this whole thing and all these efforts and continuing to make them go. I hope that you'll continue to lean in and do that and make that an intentional part of what you're doing to say, hey, if I'm committed to this church community, I'm going to be committed to trying to find ways to keep funding what we're doing together. And so, friends, I want you to know, I so look forward to getting to see you in 3 dimensions again. If you know me, you know I'm a hugger, and man, I look forward to hugging your neck and seeing so many of you in person. It's just not that time right now. It's not the wisest to do that right now. But don't get me wrong, myself and all of us, man, we really look forward to that day when that can happen. And we look forward, hopefully, in some smaller gatherings where that's going to be able to take place sooner rather than later. But in the meantime, I just want to say thanks for being you. Thanks for being Crosspointe, for this unique, beautiful community that you all are. And thanks for leaning in. Thanks for doing the work of staying connected. And I hope that we all continue to do the great work of loving radically and beautifully well in the pattern of our resurrected Christ Jesus. So, love you, friends. Take care. And I look forward to getting to see you soon.